When precision engineer Carl Zeiss founded his small workshop in Jena, Germany 175 years ago, he could not have foreseen what the future had in store for his company. It has since become a global corporation that continues to push technological progress around the world today with its innovations in computer chip development and medical technology. One such ongoing revolution within the field of microscopy is taking place at Harvard University in Boston. Professor Jeff Lichtman had discovered that the key to understanding the brain lies in its architecture, that is, in the spatial structure of the organ. But how can one look inside the brain? Because a suitable microscope didn't exist, Lichtman set about helping Zeiss to develop one.
The brain, as you probably know, is made up of many nerve cells that are interconnected in this vast network of connections that are poorly understood, largely because it's so complicated, and until recently there haven't been technologies that would allow one to image the brain at that high resolution. One is you have to look at something that's very large, a brain is very big, and you have to look at it at very high resolution. And usually the imaging techniques that allow you to look at high resolution look at very small areas, and the imaging techniques that give you a field of view of a large area have low resolution. But in order to see the brain's wiring diagram, one needs both, a large area at very high resolution. And that's only been possible with recent technologies, microscopic technologies.
The result is a microscope that, apart from needing the oversight of a technician, is fully automatic and operates 24/7. Using 91 parallel electron beams, it depicts the brain tissue as a whole, a millionth of a millimetre at a time. Lichtman, a world-renowned neuroscientist, uses a microscope that has little in common with the original creations of Carl Zeiss. It helps us to understand Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and instead of pure optics, complex computer networks display the smallest structures in 3D and in colour. The humble beginnings of Zeiss lie in a simple microscope created by the founder. He then found an ingenious partner in Ernst Abbe.
Carl Zeiss and Ernst Abbe had a clear vision, and they worked unrelentingly on innovations in the field of optics and photonics. We even have founding documents from Abbe, where he writes that these are the fields on which the company should focus its development. And that's what it has done over the past 175 years. Those fields, photonics and optronics, are still broad enough for us to continue down that path.
On November 17, 1846, the young Carl Zeiss opened his first workshop in the small town of Jena. The first years weren't easy, and Zeiss kept the company afloat by selling eyeglasses. At the time, people simply didn't know what it took to make a good microscope, so there was a lot of trial and error to begin with. Through the university, Zeiss got to know Ernst Abbe, a 26-year-old private lecturer in physics, whose research allowed for an exact calculation of optical lenses. This technological leap brought a steady income, and soon the company moved into bigger premises. The Zeiss optical factory was becoming a scientific enterprise. Otto Schott, a young chemist from Witten, was lured to Jena in 1882 with the promise of a custom-made glass laboratory. The new high-quality glass put Zeiss ahead of its competitors. In 1888, Carl Zeiss passed away, but his approach remains: engineering combined with the scientific approach and a network of top-class researchers. For many years, Professor Michael Kaschke was at the helm of the company. High above the Zeiss headquarters in Oberkochen, he explains how a constant pursuit of Carl Zeiss's vision has turned the company into a global frontrunner in photonics.
I would like to see many more interactions like this between science and business in Germany. It can only be beneficial for the country, and all the better if we at Zeiss can contribute in this way. I believe that our work is being recognized, but we still need many more to follow our example.
But what would he tell Carl Zeiss if he could show the founder what has become of the company?
I would probably take him here or to the large construction site in Jena and ask him whether he could have imagined Zeiss taking on these dimensions back at the beginning. But I would also like to ask him if it's true that he had the microscopes that didn't meet his quality standards smashed with a hammer. We'll probably never know if the story is true, but the myth certainly lives on.
At least we know that one thing is not a myth. The highest goal of Zeiss and Abbe was absolute perfection. They looked closely at their customers' needs, and Abbe developed one optical measuring device after another. They paid a visit to the World Fair in Paris to find out more about international microscope production technology, and the company's portfolio grew rapidly to include photographic lenses, measuring instruments, astronomical devices, planetariums, and lenses for eyeglasses. The company's expansion continues to this day, and currently a new Zeiss campus is being built in Jena. One person who knows more than most about the founder is historian Stephan Paetrow.
You have to imagine him like a startup entrepreneur, not quite like those we have today, but a 19th century version. He had to do almost everything himself, because he had very few people, sometimes just 1 or 2 employees. It was a very small company, and so he had to do the bookkeeping himself. We still have the ledger, where Zeiss entered all his business transactions and listed every microscope sold. He probably found the environment of a university town with an up-and-coming natural science department a very stimulating environment for his work. This included the famous natural scientist Schleiden, who also made a great contribution to microscopy.
After the death of his business partner, Abbe came up with a plan to honour the Zeiss name and ensure the continued existence of their firm. He decided to set up a foundation. This made the Zeiss and Schott companies independent of external owners, allowing profits to be used for further investments and scientific promotion. This unusual organisational structure has remained a key to its success. But there were darker times ahead. Zeiss got caught up in the maelstrom of 2 world wars. In the First War, the company produced binoculars and rangefinders for the military, and in World War II, the entire production was focused on armaments. The company's workforce was bolstered by thousands of forced labourers, concentration camp prisoners, and prisoners of war. It was impossible to imagine the town at the time without the camps. Facing up to its past, Zeiss became a member of the foundation Remembrance, Responsibility and Future. In 1945, after the Second World War, Zeiss became a coveted prize for the US and Soviet Union. We Take the Brain became the US strategy. The most important blueprints were taken along with the 77 top employees to Oberkochen in the US-occupied zone. The Soviets deported 275 Zeiss employees along with all the machinery. At the time, few would have thought that this company could ever be resurrected. But thanks to a belief in their own abilities and the will to succeed, the workers turned things around. From its new location in West Germany's Oberkochen, the Zeiss brand reached new heights in the so-called free world. And from Jena in the newly founded East German state, the name Zeiss became known throughout the Eastern Bloc. The growing competition between Zeiss in the West and Zeiss in the East was also played out in space photography. Back then, space photography was considered pointless because Earth's atmosphere would not allow any details to be seen. NASA's workaround was to pick up a Hasselblad camera with its Zeiss lens from a photo store in Houston before the 1962 Mercury Atlas mission flight. It worked, albeit moderately. This led to Hasselblad and Zeiss's closer collaboration on developing the special cameras which gave us the impressive images of the Moon in 1969. In 1978, East German Sigmund Jähn went into space armed with a multispectral camera built by Carl Zeiss, Jena. Those images showed Earth with an accuracy of 10 meters. Soviet space flights used this technology into the 1980s. In 1993, after the end of the Cold War, Ulrich Walter flew to the International Space Station, ISS, together with 5 American astronauts. For him, the subject of photography in space has a special significance.
Gerade bei der NASA zählt, schauen Sie, wenn Sie eine Mission zum Mond machen.
When NASA plans a mission to the Moon, that costs $50 billion. So nothing but the best will do, both in terms of cameras and lenses. That's why they went with Hasselblad and Zeiss. I can tell you a lot about the beauty of our Earth in lectures, but a picture is worth 1,000 words.
After the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, the two companies were reunited.
Zeiss Oberkochen, VEB Carl Zeiss Jena.
Zeiss Oberkochen and Carl Zeiss Jena both claimed to be the legitimate successor to the workshop once founded by Zeiss in Jena. They were two very different companies. One was a huge state-owned company in East Germany that manufactured optical instruments for the entire Eastern Bloc, with an incredible output and about 30,000 employees. And the other was a highly specialized West German medium-sized company, which wasn't doing too well financially in the years 1989-1990. The plant in the East was in decay, and the whole business concept relied on making most parts internally. That's a strategy that might have seemed logical under the conditions of a planned economy, because there were shortages of goods and because they tried to buy as little as possible in the West. But it made no sense in the new era of the free market. That meant both companies were already dealing with financial and organizational difficulties back then. On top of that, this much smaller company from Oberkochen was supposed to integrate a much larger company, which had this amazing range in manufacturing, but a lot of economical dead weight.
But despite all the differences, the one constant has been the company's dedication to the microscope. The Nobel Prize winner in medicine, Robert Koch, who discovered the cholera pathogen, was one of its most prominent customers. Since then, more than 30 Nobel laureates and many other researchers worldwide have sworn by the Zeiss microscopes. And just like in the early days, production starts with a glass block from shot, which is turned into a variety of lenses. The image resolution of today's microscopic lenses can reveal the structures the size of 1/1000th of a hair. Light microscopes are now standard. They can examine living cells 20 times faster than before. The next generation works with X-rays, enabling non-destructive imaging in 3D.
Ernst Abbe once said that the microscopes of the future will have little more in common with those of today than the name, and things continue to move in that direction. In 10 years' time, microscopes will be technically even more complex than today, but for the customer, they'll be like a box where the sample enters at the front and the result comes out at the back.
Modern microscopes have long been designed according to a modular system.
Thinking about microscopy in the last 20 years or so, the amount of progress that we have made just from the kind of samples that we see in life sciences, cells, microorganisms, in material sciences, you know, all your complex materials that goes in semiconductor industry, it's been a tremendous journey in the scope of what can be achieved in microscopy in the last 20, 30 years, and Zeiss has been at the forefront of it. And this one is the Crossbeam 550 system, which, in addition to the existing electron microscopy side of it, It is a focused ion beam microscope, which enables to actually mill the samples at very thin intervals to actually collect 3D information. In the biological field right now, one of the biggest things the customers are looking for is to conduct research on extremely tiny objects like proteins and specific structures within the cells. And in order to do that, traditionally it has been done in room temperature conditions. But these microscopes will allow you to prepare your samples under cryogenic conditions. And the cryogenic conditions means your samples are below minus 140 or minus 150 degrees Celsius.
So, to disclose the secret, the German Future Prize 2020 goes to Dr. Peter Kurz, Dr. Bernhard Michael Kösters, and Dr. Sergei Yulin.
Together with the Fraunhofer Institute and the Trumpf company, Zeiss was awarded the German Future Prize for the development of EUV lithography. It's based on photonics, the scientific field of laser technology.
Photonics will remain a key technology. However, it's also the basis for newer fields, such as quantum technologies, which will certainly cause revolutions in the coming years.
Zeiss and
Abbe always worked on increasing the resolution of optical instruments, and today's methods are going further and further into short wavelengths by applying the Abbe formula. The idea is to further increase the resolution of optical instruments with the shorter wavelength light. This was the basis for the new generation within lithography, which was awarded the Future Prize.
Neue Generation im Bereich der Lithografie, die gerade mit dem Zukunftspreis ausgezeichnet wurde.
The extreme ultraviolet radiation is produced by the world's most powerful laser, shooting 2 beams at a droplet of tin. The first makes it swell, the second creates the plasma. Here, in a machine the size of a camper van, collectors capture the EUV light emitted by the plasma, bundle it and transfer it to the Zeiss lithography system for exposure of the chip. Since light is usually absorbed by the air and by optics, the process takes place in a high vacuum, an environment without air molecules. Instead of lenses, the researchers use mirrors. The light is then projected through a photomask. Lastly, a pattern is transferred onto a silicon sheet that has previously been coated with a light-sensitive chemical substance. This complicated process is what lies behind the creation of a microchip with billions of transistors. How did anyone come up with this idea? It was, in fact, breathtakingly simple. The camera lens was flipped and light sent through it. For more than a century, Zeiss camera lenses have also been coveted by Hollywood. Alongside the manufacturer Ari, Zeiss has twice won the technical Oscar for its lenses. The producers of the Lord of the Rings trilogy are among those who choose Zeiss lenses. The lenses are crucial for the brilliancy of the images, as star director Wim Wenders can confirm.
Es ist von unschätzbarem Wert, dass man weiß, was eine Linse kann.
It's priceless to know what a lens can do and how it depicts the world. When you've ordered 3 sets of lenses and do a test by looking at the same setting through different lenses, you really see the difference.
Sieht man, dass die Linsen anders gucken. Die sind so anders, wie unsere Augen auch anders sehen.
The lenses are as different as our eyes. Your eyes, the viewer's eyes, or my eyes are not all the same. And the great thing about lenses is that they keep evolving, because they have to be able to capture and reflect the present time. I don't think you could make a film with the old lenses from the 50s that's set today.
Wim Wenders teaches at renowned film schools worldwide, and he often refers to 2 of his most successful films.
Ich würde da sowohl den amerikanischen Freund als auch Paris, Texas nennen, weil
I would name The American Friend and Paris, Texas, because both films really succeeded in creating their own visual world. We wanted the movies to have their own narrative feeling, their own aesthetics and unique coloring. In both films, that also had a lot to do with the choice of cameras and lenses.
Es hatte auch in beiden Filmen sehr mit der Wahl der Kameras und der Linsen zu tun.
You owe me something, don't forget.
It's December 6th, 1976.
Zeiss would probably have been pleased to know that his company has remained true to optics and continues to manufacture eyeglasses to this day. And in addition to that, measurement technology. Today, multi-sensor processors guarantee that the highest standards are met. In the automotive industry, there is no room for deviations when hundreds of thousands of cars leave the assembly line each year. Zeiss is also the world's leading company in surgical microscopes.
We have enabled a number of Nobel Prize winners to perform their experiments for the first time with Zeiss equipment. And many other innovative companies are using Zeiss technology. We are leading in research everywhere, including in medical technology. The world's best brain and spine surgeons use our surgical microscopes because they trust that Zeiss offers the best solution available on the market for their operations.
In cancer therapy, advancements have made radiation therapy possible during surgery. X-rays are pointed at the spot where the tumour was located. This is done using a spherical adapter that fits exactly into the tumour bed. In the case of brain tumours, this can significantly improve the patient's chances of survival. The ambition of Carl Zeiss to create the world's best equipment for optics evolved into an extraordinary company with 35,000 employees at 100 locations worldwide. The sleepy Kocher Valley became Germany's Silicon Valley. And still, managers and researchers at Zeiss want to push the boundaries of what is physically possible, guided by the company's core values, a pioneering spirit and the courage to try new things. The great-granddaughter of Carl Zeiss, Dr. Kathrin Siebert, pays tribute to the founder.
Da fallen einem natürlich so protestantische Eigenschaften ein, wie Beharrlichkeit, Genauigkeit.
Of course, some Protestant values such as perseverance, accuracy, and a sense of duty come to mind. If you set out with those values, there is a good chance that you can reach your self-imposed goals. And we all know that the company became leading in optics worldwide. I don't know if you can call it pride, since there's no personal achievement to having a famous ancestor, but of course he's a role model, and that's something which is inspiring.
In order to maintain its place at the helm of optical technologies, Zeiss is investing over 300 million euros at its founding site in Jena, where a brand new production facility is being built. The high-tech complex is characterized by its networked architecture. It's divided into 2 ground floors integrated into the hillside for production, laboratories and infrastructure, as well as 7 superimposed corpuses. Zeiss is keen to create an attractive and dynamic environment for young startup companies. Innovation, research and development need highly qualified specialists. The company wants to find and promote these in Jena. The Carl Zeiss Foundation is one of Germany's largest science-promoting foundations. Back at Harvard University in Boston, the acclaimed neuroscientist Jeff Lichtman gives us some fascinating insights into the brain. Thanks to Zeiss.
See these nerve cells, these big, large colored blobs, and in between them are all the wires that connect one cell to the next. And as we zoom in, you see that these wires seem to be moving, and that's just because we're moving through space, not through time here. We're just following these wires as they go from one place to another. And the brain is just wires filled with huge numbers of wires, an impossibly complicated wiring diagram.
We can only begin to imagine what a work of wonder the brain is, and the amount of data it stores is incomprehensible.
The brain is densely packed with information, and the brain is big. So Whereas you can, for a genome, it's a linear array of nucleotides, and I think it's about 1.4 gigabytes is the total human genome in terms of data, what you'd have to store. For a cubic millimeter of brain tissue, and a human has 1 million cubic millimeters, but if you had 1 cubic millimeter of brain tissue, that is about 1.4 petabytes, 1,000 terabytes. So that's 1,400 terabytes of data per cubic millimeter, and then you have to multiply that by many orders of magnitude to do a whole brain of the size of a human brain. It's frankly impossible at the moment to get a wiring diagram of a human brain at this resolution. The amount of data it would require is comparable to the total digital data in the world at any one point in time.